Welcome to She Rebel Radio, the podcast for high-performing women leaders who want to unlearn conventional rules, leave prestigious careers, and launch businesses of significance. Each week, She Rebel Radio brings you insights and advice from women entrepreneurs who transformed their prestige prisons into daring entrepreneurial success stories. Now, here is your host, Lulu Nins.
Welcome to episode 61 of She Rebel Radio, networking on your terms with Lara Squires. Lara is a legal marketing consultant and founded Consortium Marketing in 2012, which is an award-winning and specialist marketing and business development consultancy working specifically in the professional services sector. Even before starting her own business consultancy, 15 years ago, Lara started the Ladies Who Lunch Club, which is a not-for-profit networking organisation providing women's-only networking lunches, where we as women can network on our terms. There are no membership fees, no long-term commitments, just good food and good company. Lara and I, in fact, went to school together and lived on the same street for around the first 10 years of our life. It's great to have you here, Lara. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm good. Yeah, that was quite a few years ago now, Lulu, wasn't it?
I know. It was a few years ago. I know we were talking about some birthdays that are potentially coming up for us both next year.
Yep. Big birthdays. Let's not dwell on that.
No, let's not. So I would love to kick off with, you were working for a law firm as a marketing and business development manager when you set up Ladies Who Lunch. Why did you set up a women-only networking event? What was kind of the gap in the market for you at that time?
So it was a bit of a random one, to be honest, Lulu. So I was, as you say, BD for a regional law firm, and they'd recently taken over a business in Tunbridge Wells. So my role basically was to go to the opening of an envelope. And I loved networking, so I was going to everything. And I met a chap called Brian, kind of your typical guy, probably nearing retirement, incredibly friendly, really welcoming to me. And we were having a chat about the fact that my job was business development and what I was trying to do. And he was very well known in the Tunbridge Wells market. I think he did document storage. And he said, you know what you need to do, Lara? You need to set up a ladies' lunch club. And I was like, but I don't know anyone, Brian. The reason I'm coming to these networking events is because I don't know anybody. And he said, well, I need to introduce you to Claire Burrows. So he held me didn't literally take me by the hand, but took me across the room, introduced me to Claire Burrows, who's a very successful businesswoman in Tunbridge Wells and runs a company called Answercom, who knew everybody. So between us, she knew everybody, and I had the time and resource to run the networking event. So that the kind of ladies' lunch clubs were born. It started off in Tunbridge Wells in June that year, so June 15 years ago, so June 2005, went exceptionally well. I think we had about 50 ladies come along, predominantly from a professional service background. That was obviously what I was in, so therefore that was quite easy for me to tap into. And because it went so well, we very quickly, not with Claire this time because Eastbourne wasn't her target market, but the law firm I worked for's head offices were in Eastbourne, so we set one up there. And same thing happened, really successful. Lots of people came along. And I think, like you mentioned, Lulu, the ladies' lunch clubs didn't exist 15 years ago. There was no Athena, A Good Gossip, Ladies Who Latte, etc. There are lots of them now. They didn't exist then. So this was new and different.
What was the kind of gap in the market? Why do you think women were so attracted and excited by a women-only event at that time?
I think they were then and they still are now, because fundamentally women network in quite a different way. I mean, it is a bit of a generalism, and some men will network a little bit more like women than men, and some women will network a bit more like men than the other women, etc. But in the main, women are much more relationship based. So we like having a chat about the kids at school or where we went on holiday. Problems we had with the traffic getting to network. I think we're much better at general chit chat, which is often a foundation for building that relationship and going forwards to potentially work together. So that seems to work really well for the women, whereas again, this is stereotyping, but a lot of the time with the men, they're a lot more about the sell and what they can sell to you rather than how they can help you. I think we look at it in slightly different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think women are more uncomfortable with that straight, direct sale?
Yeah, I think I think a lot of people are actually. Men and
Mm.
women aren't very comfortable with being sold at. It's that kind of saying, you've got two ears and one mouth. You should listen before you speak, and see how you can help one another. And I do think networking has evolved, and there are a lot more people taking that approach now. But I just think a lot of the time as well, we tend to, as women, have similar struggles, and this will change over the years as there's more equality put in place. But we tend to be the ones that stay at home with the kids. Therefore, we tend to be the ones that go part-time, or we tend to be the ones whose career might have stalled a little bit. Also, there's a huge number of women that are setting up their own businesses. So we're kind of all coming together because we've got similar issues and we know how to help each other.
Yeah, and it's true to say, isn't it? We've kind of, in some respects, squeezed ourselves to fit into a business model that already existed as women. You and I come from the legal profession. There was a point where women weren't people,
Yeah.
so in the eyes of the law. So we've kind of squeezed ourselves to fit in. So, just having a space that women can come and share, what's coming up for them, is super powerful. Now, because you started this 15 years ago, when Ladies Who Latte and all the other amazing women's only events weren't around, it was rare. Did you get any kickback and criticism for starting a woman only event?
Well, do you know, interestingly enough, not 15 years ago. It's actually only, and it may be more that I'm more aware of things recently since setting up my own business, but I feel like it's only actually been in the last 5 years or so
Mm-hmm.
that I've had a noticeable kickback from it. So I've had quite a few people say, oh, Lara doesn't like, she's a bit of a man hater because she runs women's only events.
Mm-hmm.
They also often think all of the things I run are women's only. So I also run a virtual professionals event. Now that's for anyone, does man
Mm-hmm.
or woman, but quite often people would think it's just for women. And the same when I run training events as Consortium, my marketing agency, when I run events as that, I've sometimes found that men are reluctant to come because they think it's targeted at women.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been difficult, and we've done quite a lot of work over the last 4 years to unpick that and sort of undo it.
Mm-hmm.
But I will argue the point that there does need to be women's only networking. It's a really good starting platform. So we have a lot of ladies come to our networking events that have never been networking. And I
Mm.
think we just provide a safer environment. It's less aggressive, it's less salesy, it's very friendly. And I'm not saying mixed events aren't, but I just think it's a really good starter event for anybody that's going out networking to build their confidence.
Absolutely. And on that, there's kind of two parts to that I'd love to unpick. One part is with, potential kickback over the last 5 years, or comments that have been made about, being a man hater, or all your events are only for women. Do you think social media has played a part in that?
Social media in general, or my own social media?
Well, just in general, because we've seen such a growth of social
Mm.
media over the last 5 years, haven't we? In respect of almost needing to niche down even more, because and we're seeing that even more with COVID. Everyone can attend any networking event across the board.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if that that spread of women only events has become easier in some respects, but then more kickback in the others.
No, interesting enough, I think if anything, actually, the social media has kind of helps, because there's actually a lot of the women events now, they allow men, which does make it quite confusing.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize, for example, mumpreneurs allow men to come to the events, so that obviously does make it a bit confusing. But I think as a result, people think that women only events sometimes aren't women's only events anymore, and
Mm.
that's probably only in the last year or so that's started to change. So I don't think so much the social media
Mm.
impacts that. I think we've made a very clear decision with, obviously, we have two different platforms for our social media, one being Ladies Lunch Club and one being Consortium, and that the Consortium one, we try and steer away from too much girl power stuff, and
Mm.
kind of keep that for the Ladies Lunch Club. But I haven't seen it having a detrimental effect really from a social media perspective.
Okay, interesting. So you mentioned, it's a great starting platform for women, networking in a women-only, environment. It's a safer environment, in many respects, less aggressive, less salesy, and more friendly. Although, as we, both except there are other events that offer that. It doesn't need to just be women's only. But what other benefits have you seen derive from women, for women, from your Ladies Who Lunch events?
I think friendships are really built through the ladies' lunch clubs. You know, I can't speak for the other women-only events out there, but I've heard of similar things happening. You know, with the ladies' lunches having been run for 15 years now, the ladies that were coming 15 years ago, I met them before I was married. So I've gone through getting married, having my kids, setting up my business with these ladies. And so, you know, they become more than networking contacts. They do become your friends. And I think, again, that's sometimes a different way that we look at it. And we've had ladies join the events because they've moved to a new area. So, you know, Lulu, we were talking about your move recently, and I've had people that have moved to Brighton, for example, from London and don't know anybody. So then they're not actually coming to the networking event, as so many people do, to sell or kind of network from a traditional perspective. They're actually coming to make friends, which is I think that's a really nice place to be starting from.
Yeah, and it's so important for us as women, isn't it, as business owners or women who are decision makers within, you know, the business that they're working for, that we have other women that we can conflab about those decisions and things that we do day to day.
Yeah, I think having a support network is really important. And I think also having inspirational women in your network is important. I mean, just like having, you know, men in your network is important. My business mentor is a man. But you know, in the ladies' lunch clubs, we've got such a diverse group of women. You know, we've got some that are partners in accountancy or law firms, and we've got some that have set up a travel agency business from home, and they're in their first 6 months of trading. So there's just such a wide range of experience. I think because we're all coming to the event wanting to help each other, there's probably a lot of sort of free support and advice in there that's so valuable to those women. And I think the other difference as well, kind of between the sexes, if you like, that comes out is that we're less afraid to ask for help. So I think we will come to these things saying, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do. And as women, we want to help and support each other. Whereas I think in the traditional networking events that you get, you don't tend to get that sort of transparency and honesty.
Yeah, sometimes get that everyone showing up, you know, that business is perfect, etc.
Yes.
Do you think, yeah, and just doing really well? Although I think everyone's had a bit of a taste of being a bit more real this year in that respect. Do you think women are less afraid to ask for help in a women-only environment
Yes.
than they are in a mixed?
Yes, I think they are, because I think we still, and yeah, I kind of want to get away from stereotyping too much, but I think historically, if you said, "Oh, I'm struggling with this," if it was in an environment where you had a successful businessman, they would just tell you what you should do rather than trying to understand the problem and coach you to the point of understanding what you should do. I think we tend to approach things quite differently. So as a result, we'd be worried about airing a challenge in that sort of environment. And also, I think you'd be put off from airing that you're having any problems when you're in an environment where everyone is saying things are fantastic, I've got X new clients, or I'm recruiting X number of new staff because business is so great. We just don't tend to have that in our events. Obviously people are doing well and they'll say things are going well, but it's always quite tempered with a appreciating, probably an empathy for the others in the room.
Yeah, and you know, obviously many traditional networking events also have that you've got to bring in a certain amount of business before you can be part of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's such a wide range of events out there, depending on what someone wants to achieve, depending on what type of events they like, to find something that's right for them. I think with all the because also with some of the women's networking, just like with the mixed networking, they'll have lockouts as well, which is something I'm really anti. I just don't see how you can be adding value to your group of people if you would only have one accountant, for argument's sake, because what's to say they are the best person for the group of ladies. So I think when you're looking at what events you might be going out to, deciding if that sort of thing is important to you is really important.
Yeah, and it's that, again, it goes back to that relationship and being relational, doesn't it? That there may be more than one accountant, but it depends who's got the relationship with who and who's right for who, rather than having a
And who do
lockout.
you like? You know, it's that buying process of knowing somebody, trusting them and liking them. Now, your group might have a really good accountant that a lot of people trust, but if you don't like them, are you really going to want to work with them? And there's nothing against the person, but sometimes you can't help who you like and don't like, which is why I just think you should always give people choice.
Yeah.
Which is where I don't like those lockouts.
No, and even the language is quite heavy.
Yeah,
Lock out, lock down.
Yeah, ban the word lock.
Exactly, definitely. And you set up Consortium Marketing, broke free from the corporate world in terms of being employed. What did ladies who lunch and the support that you created there? Do you feel that helped you make that decision and that breakout?
Well, the ladies' lunch clubs are kind of rewinding a little bit. So when was my first born? So Evie was born in 2008. So I went on maternity leave. And when I did that, shortly after, the firm closed at that point, I think it's about that point, they closed the Tunbridge Wells office.
Right.
So I was coming back part-time, and they said to me, we're closing the Tunbridge Wells office, so there's no point in you running your Tunbridge Wells ladies lunch anymore. At this point, I already had Eastbourne and I had a Lewis one. So I said, that's fine, I'm going to run it myself in my spare time, she says, laughing, with a newborn. But as you do, these ladies were my friends by this point, so I was like, oh, I'll just run it myself. So I kept running the Tunbridge Wells ladies lunch just as Lara, and then we moved to Worthing 9 years ago now, and I set up a Worthing one again as Lara while I was still at the law firm. And I suppose what that gave me was a bit of a taste to doing something on your own. Right. Weirdly, it actually had a negative impact because people thought when I set up my business that I ran ladies' lunch clubs, that's all I did. So Lara runs ladies' lunch clubs, which would be lovely. That would be a marvellous job to have, just go and have lunch all the time. So I had to spend all this time then of having all these lunches, because when I left the law firm, I took all of the lunches with me because they had no interest in keeping them. And I then had to re-educate all the ladies. So, I used to be in a law firm. Well, now I run a marketing agency, and I've always done marketing. And a lot of them thought I was a lawyer when I was at the law firm. So there was this whole kind of unpicking of trying to re-educate them about what I did. But I think one of the things it probably did do for me was immersed me in the powerful women's world. The ladies that came to the ladies' lunch club, 70 to 80% of them were decision makers. So being around powerful women is a good role. It's a good role model for anybody, I think. So having that network was definitely a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. So unpicking your identity and what you were known for, was that the biggest challenge that you had when branching out on your own with your marketing business?
Was it the biggest challenge? It's definitely been a challenge. I probably wasn't aware of it being a challenge. I think the biggest challenge is what you don't know, and you don't know what you don't know until you realise you don't know it, which is, I know, sounds a ridiculous thing to say, but it is that whole. Particularly for me, I'm quite an impulsive person, and I'll just be like, yeah, I'm just going to go and do that without necessarily thinking through all the logistics.
Yeah, you're a visionary. That's what I call a visionary person. Yeah.
I think the challenge is probably with being a visionary, though, is that you do sometimes get caught up and possibly don't see problems coming. I mean, the big positive is that you make stuff happen. And I think I've been quite lucky with, some of the things that have ended up happening with the business. But the whole empowering and supporting women thing has followed all the way through. So when I set up Consortium, I had a business partner. She was also a working mum. That didn't pan out. Working in professional services wasn't for her, so she left within the first year. But one of my core objectives, and one that she shared, was actually to bring other women into our business that we could support with a good work-life balance.
Yeah.
So it's accidental, but my whole team now are female. We did have a guy working with us until the end of last year, and he'd been with us 4 years. But I mean, marketing does tend to be quite a female environment, and all of the team have a huge amount of flexibility. So one of them came to me this morning and said about October half term, and can she flex her hours because of holiday clubs, etc., etc. It's no problem.
Yeah.
And I just really wanted to be able to, because again, probably from the ladies' lunch clubs, hearing what people's problems are, that rigidity or whatever you want to call it, around working 9 till 5, Monday to Friday, no exceptions, an hour for lunch. It's just
Yeah.
so, it's inflexible. Who is it actually benefiting? Does the client even need that? So that's
Yeah,
been
it's
really
almost like
nice.
being in a law firm, it's that proving that you're all there almost, from what I recall, of that you are all
Yeah,
there grafting.
clocking in, making sure you do your hours,
Fee
and
earning.
don't get fee earning, exactly. I mean, don't get me wrong, we do time records as an agency because we charge based on time.
Mm.
But actually, I want the guys to love doing what they do, and to not feel worried about going, oh, do you know what, next week, so my son's got a inset day, can I please take the day and make the time up, or can I take a day's holiday with short notice? It's just providing that flexibility, to people that really need it. And do you know what that ends up giving you as an employer is such a level of loyalty from your staff.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. It's so important. So how can women, as we've, entitled this episode, Network on Your Terms, how can women network successfully on their own terms? What would your top 3 tips be?
So I think, some of these aren't women specific. They kind of apply to anybody from a networking perspective. But the first thing is understanding what you're trying to achieve, because you can waste a lot of time, a bit like with everything under the marketing banner. If you don't know what you're trying to achieve, you can get lost down various different rabbit holes, whether it's networking or social media.
Yeah.
So understanding what you're hoping to get out of it. And it can be just that you want to grow a support network. It could be that you want to find your ideal client, but obviously you need to know who your ideal client is before you get to that stage.
Mm.
Um, Understand what time of day person you are. This one's probably a little bit less relevant now we're virtual, because you can be sat at home. You haven't got to get in a car or stand on a cold platform waiting for a train in the middle of the night. But for me, really early on, understanding that actually I'm a morning person. So
Mm.
you will not see me at an evening event. And if you do, you need to remember to be kind to me, because it's not my comfortable time of day. Um, to the point where I thought I could beat it. I thought I could kind of beat the system. I'm going to go to an evening event. And it was Brighton Chamber of Commerce, and the membership lady came up to me and said, "Are you okay?" I thought I was doing a brilliant job, and she's like, "You just don't seem yourself." And so you can't beat this. You can't fake the system. If you're a morning person, stick to morning. I think
You were
that's
evening Lara, yeah.
I was trying to be evening Lara, and nobody likes evening Lara. So I went back to my morning box, and I'm quite happy. I'll
Yeah.
do lunches. Lunches are good for me as well. But
Yeah, that's such a powerful piece of advice, across the board for all sexes, but for women, for us to know our own rhythm and what works for us, and to own that.
yeah, and
Really
don't beat yourself up about it. You don't need to go to everything. Obviously, like I said at the beginning of the talk, back in the day, I did go to the opening of an envelope. And what that taught me is that you don't need to go to the opening of an envelope. You don't need to be at everything all the time and go to everything.
Mm.
Particularly, with a lot of the ladies that are probably listening to this, you're at a stage of your career now where you're not at the start of your career. So that was for doing back when you had something. I don't think we have anything to prove anymore. So be selective. Choose the things that are going to really provide value to you. So don't just go because someone told you to. Don't go because everybody else is going. Go because you're going to think you're going to get value out of it. So really spending some time making sure that it's the right event for you, and don't be bullied into. Obviously, a lot of these networking events are people's businesses, and they do have very effective sales teams to get you to become a member. So don't be bullied into any of that. Only join something that's going to add value to you and your business.
Yeah,
So
amazing.
sorry, that wasn't 3, was it? So I would say,
I was like, is that the third, or I think we've
yeah,
got
I
another
don't
one
know.
coming?
I'm going to say one more, because there's one more that is missed. Was kind of they're kind of two in one. They're missed. So the preparation I kind of mentioned a bit earlier, of knowing who's going to be there and who you want to meet. But the real biggie is your follow up. So people will block time in their diary. They'll go to these networking events. They'll be like, "Yeah, it's amazing. I came home with 20 business cards," or as we're doing now, "I've made 20 new LinkedIn connections."
Yeah.
But you've got to apply this, so what to that, because that's not work. Or if that was your objective to get work, that's not work. Yes, you've made new connections, but then what are you going to do with it now? So what is your process? So you've made these 20 connections. Are you going to send them emails regularly? Are you going to sift through them and identify who you're going to follow up to have a coffee with? So really thinking about that post-networking event time of what have I got out of it? What did I want to get out of it? And how can I make sure I get that out of it?
Yes, really, really, really powerful in terms of the fortunes in the follow-up, not just showing up at the event.
Sure.
Definitely. So what is next for you? What's next for Consortium Marketing and Ladies Who Lunch, who has been on, who's had to go online this year like so many other networking events?
So I don't really know. And I think it's okay not to know, because the world's changing daily, or weekly, if not daily, and we don't have any control over it. So I think all you can do is your best in the moment. We made a decision really early on in lockdown that we were going to continue with our events. I mean, I know lots of groups that haven't even gone back since March yet. They're not even trying to be virtual, which I think is such a shame. So I think we held our first virtual event the second week in April, and we've continued to do so. So we've made them really low cost. They just cover the admin. I would like them to go back to being physical, but talking to some of my peers that run networking events, we're of the opinion it's not going to be till spring, because what's going to be different about January compared to December? Yes, it's 2021, but this virus isn't suddenly going to have disappeared.
No.
So I think realistically, we're looking at spring 2021. So we're just really listening to the members of the Ladies Lunch Club around what they want from us and how we can support them. I think Zoom is fit for purpose. It works. We've got quite a good format. I think I'd like to introduce as many people as possible to the virtual networking. So we've had a few people from the Ladies Lunch Club group that have only just got on board and started coming online with us, because they were reticent for whatever reason. So the Ladies Lunch Club, we've got a new website coming as well, because that's a little bit dated. So that will be launching next month, I hope. We've got the brilliant team at White Space who are creating that for us. So that's kind of from the Ladies Lunch Club perspective. And then Consortium, it's frustrating really, because in January it was flying, and like most businesses, particularly in marketing, we were obviously really hit by everything that's happened, because most people, the first thing they cut, even though it's not what they're meant to cut, is marketing. So that's been really difficult. We did lose a couple of clients, but all of the clients that remained have now gone back, bar one or two, to their pre-lockdown retainers, which is fantastic, and we're incredibly grateful to our clients for that. It's definitely strengthened those relationships. I think they're with us, not for life as such, but they're going to be with us for the long haul, because we've been through something quite big together. I've got a fantastic team. I had a new member of the team join us in September called Belinda. She's a South African lady, got a massive appetite for just everything we throw at her she loves. So we've got some exciting stuff planned with her. We've got a new consultant joining the team. So barring incident, everything is going in the right direction. We're very fortunate to work with quite a recession-proof sector. Everyone still needs a lawyer. You can't get away from needing them, unfortunately. Same with accountants. So they're relatively protected. If I was doing marketing for hotels and restaurants, I would probably be crying in a corner right now, because you'd really be struggling. So we're just trying to remain positive. I feel like we've added a lot of value through lockdown. We've done a lot of free demo videos, webinars, provided free networking events, and remained really visible. So I'm proud of what we've achieved. Frustrated that I can't plan like I would like to. But yeah, fingers crossed, we've put everything in place that we need to, and it will continue to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's such a tough time with COVID hitting in March, because it's such a big growth time for all business, isn't it? In spring, it's just the momentum really starts going. So yeah, it's hit everybody across the sectors.
And I think, sorry Lily, I was just going to say, one of the things I would say as well is that actually, whilst when I set up the business, people would say, what are you trying to achieve? What's the plan with Consortium? And my flippant response was always, oh, world domination, of course. But actually it's not. And I'm really comfortable with that now. I don't really want many more staff. I don't want to shed load more clients. clients. I want a nice number of clients who we like. This is in our, we've got quite a succinct core values. We need to like our clients. We need to have fun with them. They need to do what we tell them, which I know does sound quite dictatorial, but if they don't get a result from it. So it's quite challenging if they don't do what we say. So, to have a small group of clients that we really add value to have a great team of staff that I like and that they like me and we work really well together, and to have flexibility. I said to you off air that I was toying with the idea of taking most of February off because it's going to be my big birthday. And in what instance can you do that if you're employed by somebody? So there's got to be some perks to being your own boss. And I just think that work-life balance, it's not all about money. It's definitely not for me. It's about feeling like I've done a good job, growing something. I am growing something. Consortium is my third baby, but it's also my team's business as well. I'm not kind of, it's mine and nobody else is allowed a part of it. So I think there is scope for it to grow, but I'm not aggressive about it. And I've been part of these groups in Brighton. They had the NatWest Entrepreneurial Spark group that I was part of, the hatchery, and it was very exciting. It was a really good thing to be involved in, but I was a square peg in a round hole because I don't want to get investment. I don't want to double my business within a year. And some people might say, well, that's crazy, but I think it's quite sane actually, because I don't want the stress.
No, is it this period of retreat, with COVID and the pandemic, that's helped you get clear about that?
No, I've always felt quite, probably within 3 years of having the business, there will be eight officially in January actually, although we registered the business in October, we officially started in the January, so we'll be 8 in January. And I think quite quickly into the business, because running a business takes a lot of energy, and there's I've met a few people, it's probably in the first few years of running the business, they did tend to be men, but a few people that had got to the stage where they were selling their business. And I said to them, oh, well, I don't work a Monday, I do a 4-day week. And they kind of looked at me in shock of, oh, and a few people said, well, how much would you earn if you worked at Monday as well? Just imagine how much extra you'd earn. And I was like, I wouldn't earn any extra. Because I would be demotivated. I'd be cross that I was having to work the Monday. And who would that benefit? And a couple of them actually said, do you know what, if I did it again, I would do exactly what you're doing, because they've got to retire, they've got to work till 65 or whatever to get retirement. But wouldn't it be nicer to have a sort of bit of time off now when you can actually do some stuff with it?
And I think, sustainability is a massive word that's being used across the board at the moment, but it's about having a sustainable business or employment or whatever you work within. I think our generation is shifting the needle on that actually it's not about working and exhausting yourself so you can retire. It's about working sustainably and enjoying life whilst we can. And I think, the pandemic's
100%.
probably woken a lot of people up to that.
Yeah, and I love your idea of traveling while you're working. And I've said to my husband before now, can we just take the summer off, particularly the kids being out of school for 6 weeks, and just, we could go and work in the south of France. We've both got the types of jobs where we can work virtually. Why not? Surely that would be much more fun to do while the kids are young enough to want to be seen with their parents, and we're young enough that we can actually do stuff, rather than waiting until we're 65 and we don't want to. I'm sure I'm going to be a very active 65-year-old, but also there's an element, my dad died quite young, and you don't necessarily know you're going to get to that stage. So I just think you've got to try and live for today. It's so difficult, isn't it? Because we all want everything and we want it now. But it's just really looking at what your priorities are. And I'm very clear about what my priorities are now. So my work won't encroach on that. I'm taking tomorrow off, for example, because my daughter's got an inset day. So that's such a nice feeling to be able to do that and not feel bad.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's, and watch this space for you working from the south of France.
I know, wouldn't that be nice? Well, actually, I saw on the news they were talking about the Maldives have an island where you can go and work, and they provide you with unlimited drink, brilliant Wi-Fi. The downside was something like £18,000 a week. So I thought, well, that probably rules that one out.
But hold the vision.
Yeah, it might just be, I might come and see you, Lulu. It might be a beach in Cornwall instead.
Exactly. We'll make sure we have the sunshine for you, rather than unlike today where it's super stormy. But amazing. Thank you so much for being on She Rebel Radio.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening to She Rebel Radio, the podcast for high-performing women leaders who want to unlearn conventional rules, leave prestigious careers, and launch businesses of significance. She Rebel Radio is executive produced and hosted by women's advocate and coach, Lulu Mims. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe so you never miss another episode. You can find Lulu Mims on Facebook and LinkedIn at Lulu Mims and on Instagram at LuluMims_biz. Until next week, keep rebelling against the rules and designing success your way.